I've been right here with you through this season, closer than you realize, watching the quiet strength it takes for you to keep going. I've seen how tightly you've been holding everything together, as if one small release might cause it all to fall apart. The way your mind runs ahead, rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet, trying to solve problems that haven't even arrived. And beneath it all, the tension you carry so silently. I'm not saying this to expose your struggle, but to honor it, because I see how much you've been carrying, often without recognition, often without rest. I notice the details others miss. The way your breathing shifts when worry creeps in. The way you avoid certain thoughts because you simply don't have the energy to feel one more thing. And still, you keep showing up. The world may look at you and see someone who is managing, someone who is strong, but I see deeper. I see the weight behind your strength, and I want you to hear this clearly. You were never meant to carry all of this alone. Scripture reminds us in 1 Peter 5-7, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." That isn't just a comforting idea, it's an invitation. So let me ask you gently, not as a demand, but as someone who truly cares for you. Would you be willing to loosen your grip, even just a little? Not to give up, but to trust. Not to lose control, but to find peace. Right now, whether physically or quietly within your heart, imagine opening your hand. Let that tightness soften. Let your soul remember what it feels like not to strive so hard. And as you begin this journey, I invite you to respond. If you feel ready, type Amen in the comments as a declaration that you are choosing trust over fear. Like, share, and subscribe to support this message reaching others who need it. And if you've already been engaging, praying, and standing in faith, thank you. You are seen. Stay with me until the end, because there is a prayer waiting for you. A prayer for strength, for grace, and for the peace your heart has been longing for. You've been looking at the road ahead as something that must be controlled, managed, predicted at every turn, as if the slightest misstep might cause it to turn against you. And honestly, that makes sense. You didn't learn that instinct in a vacuum. The road behind you taught you that lesson. There were moments when things fell apart without warning, when trust felt expensive, when being careful seemed like the only way to stay safe. So you adapted, you sharpened your awareness, you learned to anticipate, to plan, to brace yourself before anything could go wrong. That wasn't weakness, that was survival. But there comes a point where survival habits begin to weigh more than they protect. And I want to gently introduce you to a different way of moving forward. Not by force, not by pressure, but by invitation. Because some of the most important things in your life cannot be controlled into existence. They can only be received. Think about it this way. A closed hand can hold tightly to what it already has, but it cannot receive anything new. An open hand, though, becomes a place where something can be given, something unexpected, something unearned. Trust works like that. So does peace. So does the kind of provision that shows up in ways you didn't plan for. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus points to the birds of the air, how they do not sow or reap or store away in barns, yet they are fed. It's not a call to stop living responsibly, but it is a reminder that life is sustained by more than your effort alone. You've become very skilled at holding on, at tightening your grip when things feel uncertain. But there is another posture, one that doesn't come as naturally at first. It's the posture of openness, of allowing instead of forcing, of trusting instead of controlling. And this is not passivity, it's not giving up. It's actually a deeper kind of strength. It's choosing to work with life rather than against it. Ecclesiastes speaks about a time for everything, a time to plant and a time to uproot. Wisdom is not just in action, but in knowing when to release. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to carry everything yourself. Not just your responsibilities, but your future, your healing, your outcomes. It's the kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep, because it's not just physical. It's the weight of feeling like everything depends on you. Like if you don't hold it all together, no one else will. And over time, that belief starts to wear you down. You weren't meant to be everything at once. Not the planner, the protector, the fixer, and the answer to every problem. There's a moment in the Old Testament where Moses grows overwhelmed, trying to lead and care for everyone on his own. And he's advised to share the burden, to stop carrying what was never meant to rest on his shoulders alone. That wisdom still applies. You don't have to carry the entire story by yourself. And here's something even deeper to consider. Some of what you're holding onto so tightly isn't actually yours to carry. It may feel like responsibility, but underneath, it could be something else. Old pain that hasn't been named, patterns you inherited without realizing it, ways of thinking that were passed down to you, not because they were healthy, but because they were familiar. Maybe you grew up in an environment where worry was the language of care, where being anxious meant being responsible, where resting felt unsafe because no one ever modeled it for you. So you learned to stay alert, to stay prepared, to stay in control. But those patterns don't have to define you forever. In the book of Isaiah, there's a promise that speaks directly into this kind of weariness. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. That kind of renewal doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from shifting where your strength comes from letting go of the belief that everything rests on your ability to manage it. There may also be specific moments in your past that shaped how you respond to uncertainty, times when something hurt you, disappointed you, or caught you off guard. Your mind and body learned from those moments. They started treating every new situation as if it carried the same risk. That's how protection works. It generalizes. It tries to keep you safe by staying on high alert. But not every moment is the same as the one that hurt you. The environment has changed. The people have changed. And you have changed too. You've grown, even if you don't always see it. What once overwhelmed you may no longer have the same power. But your habits haven't fully caught up to that truth yet. So instead of forcing yourself to suddenly let go of everything, start smaller. Notice where your grip is tight. Notice what thoughts keep looping, what worries keep returning, and gently begin to loosen your hold, even just a little. Not all at once, not perfectly, just enough to create space. There's a quiet story in the Bible about a widow who had almost nothing left, just a small jar of oil. And yet, when she was willing to trust and follow a simple instruction, that small jar became more than enough. It multiplied in ways she could not have predicted. That story isn't just about provision. It's about what happens when we stop measuring possibility by what we currently hold. You are allowed to live your life as it unfolds, not just as something you must constantly control. You are allowed to walk through your story instead of trying to write every detail ahead of time. And as you begin to open your hands, even slightly, you may start to notice something new, a sense of relief, a quiet kind of hope, a reminder that you are not alone in carrying what comes next. This is not about losing control. It's about finding a different kind of support, one that doesn't demand exhaustion from you, one that meets you where you are and walks with you forward, step by step, with patience, with grace. There are things in your hands that truly belong to you. They are not illusions or inherited fears or borrowed burdens. They are real responsibilities, real relationships, the quiet and steady care you carry for the people you love. And hear this clearly. You are not being asked to abandon them. Love does not ask you to walk away from what matters. What is being asked of you is something far more gentle and far more powerful. You are being invited to hold these things differently. Right now, you may be holding them with tension, as if your grip alone is what keeps everything from falling apart. But there is another way to carry what matters to you, a way that is rooted in trust rather than fear, in peace rather than urgency. In the book of Philippians, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." That kind of posture does not remove responsibility, but it transforms how you carry it. You can care deeply without being consumed. You can be entrusted with something precious without suffocating it. Think of the difference between a clenched fist and an open cup. A fist is rigid, forceful, always bracing, but a cup is steady, receptive, able to hold without crushing. You were not designed to hold your life like a weapon. You were designed to carry it like something sacred. Even Jesus, in moments of deep weight, stepped away to pray, to release, to realign. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he did not deny the burden before him, but he also did not carry it alone. "Not my will, but yours be done." That was not surrender out of weakness. That was strength, rooted in trust. Part of the reason your hands have stayed closed for so long is because, deep down, you are not sure what will happen if you let go. There is a quiet fear that if you stop pushing, everything will stop moving. That if you release control, what you care about will be forgotten or mishandled. But what if that fear is not telling you the truth? What if there is a kind of work happening beyond your reach, beyond your planning, beyond your ability to control? In Isaiah 55, it says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." That is not meant to distance you, it is meant to reassure you. There are layers of movement, of timing, of connection that you simply cannot see yet. And that is not a flaw in you, it is part of being human. You are skilled, yes. You have learned to adapt, to solve, to survive in ways that are remarkable. But there are things being arranged that do not depend on your effort alone. Life, when placed in God's hands, begins to unfold in ways that may seem invisible at first, yet are always purposeful, not dramatic, not immediate, but steady, like seeds planted beneath the soil. Jesus spoke often about this kind of growth. In Mark 4, he describes how a farmer scatters seed and then sleeps and rises, night and day, and the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. That is the nature of something sacred being tended beyond your sight. It does not require your constant interference. It requires your willingness to trust that something is happening even when you cannot measure it. There are details being arranged that you could never orchestrate on your own, connections forming before you ever meet the people, timing aligning in ways no calendar could predict, protection unfolding quietly, without announcement. You may not see these things in the moment. In fact, most of them pass unnoticed. A delay that frustrates you now may be the very thing that spared you from something you were never meant to face. A closed door may feel like rejection, but later reveal itself as protection. Consider the story of Joseph. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, imprisoned unjustly. For years, it must have seemed like everything had gone wrong. And yet, piece by piece, something greater was being woven. Years later, standing in a place of influence and provision, he could finally say, "What you meant for harm, God meant for good." That kind of perspective does not come in the middle of the storm. It comes when you begin to see that even the painful chapters were not wasted. There are also quieter threads, the kind that do not make headlines, a conversation that happens at just the right moment, a word that reaches you when you are close to giving up, a small act of kindness from someone who has no idea how much you needed it. These are not accidents. They are part of a deeper care that surrounds you, even when you are not aware of it. And then there are the answers that do not look like answers at first, the prayers that seem to go unheard, only to reveal themselves years later in ways you could not have imagined, the opportunities that did not work out, making space for something better, the relationships that ended, not as a loss, but as a necessary clearing for something healthier to grow. You do not need to manage all of this. You do not need to anticipate every outcome or secure every possibility. Your role is not to control the entire unfolding. Your role is to walk in obedience and trust, knowing that what God has prepared for you will not be lost when you place it in His hands. And maybe, just for a moment, you can test this, not as a lifelong decision, not as a dramatic shift, but as a small, quiet experiment. What happens if you stop holding everything so tightly just for a single breath? What happens if you allow yourself to rest your grip, even slightly, and see if the world continues to move? Because here is something you may not have been told often enough. Not everything is meant to be held together by force. Some things need to fall, not as a failure, but as a clearing. In the book of John, it says, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." There is a kind of release that creates space for something greater to rise. Sometimes what feels like holding on is actually a quiet resistance to being helped. It begins with care, with responsibility, with love. But over time, it can harden into something else, a reflex, a constant readiness to carry, even when there is no weight that truly needs carrying. You don't have to live that way forever. There is another rhythm available to you, one where you still care deeply, still show up, still love fully, but without the constant strain. Where your strength is not measured by how tightly you hold, but by how deeply you trust. And that shift does not happen all at once. It begins in small moments, a softened breath, a quieter mind, a hand that loosens, even slightly. And in that space, something new begins to grow. I am not harsh with the part of you that has learned to stay tense, alert, always ready. That part of you has worked hard for a long time. It has protected you in ways you may not even fully realize. So this is not about shutting it down or pretending it never existed. It is about teaching it something new. Teaching it that strength does not always look like effort, that there is a deeper kind of strength found in rest. Rest is often misunderstood. It is not weakness. It is not laziness. It is not the absence of responsibility. Rest is the place where strength is restored, where clarity returns, where your spirit is no longer running on empty. Without rest, even the strongest person eventually breaks under the weight they were never meant to carry alone. In Psalm 46, there is a quiet but powerful instruction. Be still and know that I am God. Not perform, not strive. Be still. There is a kind of knowing that only comes when you stop trying to manage everything at once. You have been living as if everything depends on you, as if your thoughts, your planning, your vigilance are the beams holding your life together. But that was never your role. You are not the structure. You are the one living within it. The foundation of your life does not rest on your anxiety. It rests on something far more stable, far more faithful. Lamentations reminds us that His mercies are new every morning, not because you earned them overnight, but because they were already prepared before you even opened your eyes. And yet, I see how your days often begin. Before your feet even touch the ground, your mind is already racing ahead. You are solving problems that have not arrived, rehearsing conversations that may never happen, preparing for outcomes that are still unwritten. It is exhausting, even if you have grown used to it. You arrive in tomorrow long before you have fully lived today, and in doing so, you quietly miss the peace that was available in this moment. This is not a failure. It is a habit. And habits can change. There is a simple truth I want you to try, not as a performance, but as something honest. In your own quiet way, even if no one else hears it, say this: you can have it. Not loudly, not perfectly, just sincerely. There is something powerful about honestly bringing your burdens before God and releasing them in His presence. Proverbs 18:21 says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Sometimes one honest sentence spoken from the heart can shift something that has been locked in place for years. I think about a story that reflects this kind of quiet trust, not one of perfection, but of surrender over time. Consider David before he became king. There were long seasons where he was hidden, overlooked, even hunted. He had opportunities to take control of his own destiny, to force outcomes, to seize what had been promised to him, but he didn't. In one moment, when he had the chance to harm Saul and end his suffering early, he chose restraint. He chose trust over control, and that decision shaped everything that followed. There is a difference between passivity and freedom. Passivity avoids responsibility. Freedom carries responsibility without being crushed by it. You are not being asked to step back from your life. You are being invited to step into it differently. There is a part of you that still dreams, a part that has not disappeared, even if it feels buried under years of overthinking, self-doubt, or the pressure to be perfect. Maybe that part feels distant now. Maybe it feels like something you lost somewhere along the way, but it is still there. It has been waiting, quietly, for space to breathe again. Sometimes we are the ones who lock away our own potential, not intentionally, but gradually. We trade wonder for control, curiosity for certainty, trust for strategy, and before we know it, we are living carefully instead of fully. But that is not the end of your story. There are moments God is preparing for you that you cannot yet see, opportunities that do not depend on your constant effort, spaces where you will arrive and realize something has already been set in place for you. In Psalm 23, it says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Notice the language. The table is prepared, not rushed, not improvised, prepared. What if your life is not something you have to force into place, but something that is already being arranged with care? Imagine stepping into a role you have not allowed yourself to experience before, not as the one who must manage everything, but as someone who is allowed to receive, like a guest at a table that has already been set. A guest does not rush into the kitchen to check every detail. A guest trusts the one who prepared the meal. A guest sits, breathes, and receives what has been lovingly made. You have been playing every role at once: the planner, the worker, the protector, the provider, and it has left you tired in a way that goes deeper than physical exhaustion. But you were never meant to carry all of that alone. There is a rhythm available to you that you may not have experienced yet. A rhythm where your actions flow from a place of rest, not desperation. Where you are not working to earn peace, but working from peace. Even Jesus demonstrated this rhythm. He withdrew from the crowds, stepped away from the demands, and rested. Not because he lacked purpose, but because he understood where true strength comes from. There is something deeply beautiful about a person who begins to live this way. Not perfectly, not all at once, but gradually. You can see it in their presence. The tension begins to leave their body. Their breathing slows, their words soften. They are no longer trying to prove their worth through constant effort. They begin to trust that they are already held. I have seen this kind of transformation in real lives. A woman who spent years holding her family together through sheer determination finally allowed herself to rest, and in that rest, she discovered that love did not disappear when she stopped striving. A man who had always been the strong one for everyone else found himself in a quiet moment where he could finally admit his own need, and instead of falling apart, he found support waiting for him. Even young people who feel pressure to have everything figured out begin to experience relief when they allow themselves to not know, to simply be present, to trust that clarity will come in time. These moments are not dramatic, they are quiet, but they are sacred. And there is a moment like that waiting for you. A moment when your body realizes it no longer has to stay tense. When your mind quiets just enough for you to feel peace again. When you stop reaching for the next task long enough to simply exist without pressure. That moment is not far away. It has been waiting patiently. You do not need to know how everything will turn out. That kind of knowing has never truly protected you. It has only given the illusion of control while quietly draining your energy. What is being offered to you now is something better. A different exchange. Trust instead of constant certainty. Presence instead of endless prediction. Rest instead of relentless management. It is not a loss, it is a gift, and it is being offered to you with patience, with care, and with a love that does not rush you, but gently invites you forward. What if all the careful planning you've been doing, all the rehearsing and preparing, has not only been about control, but also about distance? Not distance from your responsibilities, but distance from something more vulnerable. Closeness. Sit with that idea for a moment, not as a criticism, but as a quiet realization. Sometimes we fill our minds with strategies because intimacy feels unfamiliar. Sometimes we stay busy with solutions because being seen, truly seen, feels too exposed. And sometimes the same part of us that holds everything tightly is also the part that has forgotten how to be soft. But you are allowed to be soft here. You are allowed to come as you are, without armor, without performance. There has never been a moment where your tenderness was rejected in the presence of God. In fact, Scripture tells us in Psalm 34-18, The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That closeness is not reserved for when you are strong. It meets you precisely where you are most open, most human, most real. There may have been voices in your past that taught you otherwise, voices that made you feel like your sensitivity was a flaw, like your tears were something to hide, like strength meant silence and control. Some of those voices came from people who cared about you but did not know how to show it well. Others may have come from places that were never safe to begin with, but none of those voices spoke the truth about who you are allowed to be. God has never asked you to harden yourself in order to be accepted. He has never required you to suppress your heart in order to belong. In fact, in Ezekiel 36-26, there is a promise. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh, a heart that feels, a heart that responds, a heart that is alive, not guarded. You don't have to carry the same version of strength you once needed to survive. That version served a purpose in its time, but it is not the only way to live. You can begin to lay it down, slowly, gently, without fear that you will be harmed for doing so. You can come with your tears and find that you are received just as fully as when you come with joy. The welcome does not change. The love does not adjust itself based on how composed you appear. What matters here is not how well you hold yourself together, but how honestly you show up. When you begin to release what you've been holding, something shifts. And it may not look the way you expect. You might think that what you're offering is small, insignificant, compared to everything that still feels unresolved. But that's not how it is seen. What matters is not the size of what you release, but the trust it takes to release it. In the Gospel of Luke, there is a moment where a woman offers 2 small coins, all she had, and it is valued more than the larger offerings of others, not because of the amount, but because of the heart behind it. Trust is precious. It is the beginning of transformation, and once that trust is given, something begins to move in ways you cannot fully trace. The road ahead is not a puzzle you have to solve before you walk it. It is a path that unfolds step by step. Proverbs 3-5-6 reminds us, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Notice it does not say you must understand every turn. It says, you are guided as you go. There is freedom in that. You don't need to map out every detail before you begin. You don't need to secure every outcome before you take the next step. You only need enough light for where your foot is about to land, and that light will always be there. If you look back, you may begin to see evidence of this already woven into your life. Moments when you thought you would not make it through, and yet you did. Times when strength appeared in you that you didn't know you had. News that once felt unbearable, yet somehow you found a way to carry it. That strength did not come from stored reserves you built up over time. It came in the moment you needed it. There is a story in Exodus about manna, bread from heaven, given to the Israelites in the wilderness. It appeared fresh each morning, just enough for that day. If they tried to store it up, it would spoil. The lesson was simple but profound. Provision comes when it is needed, not before, and it still works that way. You don't need tomorrow's strength today. You only need today's. So take one step, then another. Let the story unfold as you move through it, not before. You are not required to know how everything will turn out. You are not responsible for controlling every outcome or predicting every possibility. Your role is simpler and far more meaningful. To be present, to be honest, to be kind, and to keep walking. There are moments that will come into your life not because you planned them, but because you were open to them. A conversation you almost avoided. A decision that didn't seem logical but felt right deep down. A path you didn't expect to take. These are often the places where something beautiful begins. There is a quieter voice within you, beneath all the noise of strategy and fear. A voice that does not shout, but gently nudges. That voice is worth listening to. It often leads you toward what you need, even when it doesn't make immediate sense. And as you begin to loosen your grip, even slightly, you may not notice the change right away. It may be subtle, almost invisible, but over time, something begins to shift. You may find yourself in an ordinary moment, brushing your hair, standing in line, looking out a window, and suddenly realize that a thought that once triggered tension no longer has the same hold on you. The future you used to fear no longer feels as heavy. That is the quiet work of release, continuing in you. You don't have to manage that process. You don't have to track it or measure it. It unfolds naturally, like something growing beneath the surface. The soil has already begun to change, and what grows from it will come in its time. There is a version of you that is not constantly bracing for impact. A version that breathes more deeply, that moves with more ease, that trusts without needing constant reassurance. That version is not far away. It is already forming, and there is no rush. You are not being pushed. You are being invited. Grace moves at a pace that honors your readiness. It does not force. It does not demand. It simply remains present, steady, patient. The only urgency you have felt has come from within, from the belief that everything must be figured out quickly, that you must resolve everything now. But you are allowed to take your time. Whatever you cannot release today, you can release tomorrow. And whatever still feels too heavy to let go of tomorrow can wait until the next day. There is no shame in the process. Your hands will open at the pace they are able to open, and that pace is known. It is understood. Each time you do let go of something, even something small, notice what happens. The world does not collapse. The thing you released does not disappear into chaos. It is held, quietly, faithfully, without spectacle. And often, the first evidence you will feel is not something you see, but something within you. A lightness, a softening, a sense that you are no longer carrying quite as much as you were a moment ago. That feeling is real, because the weight was never meant to be yours alone. It only felt that way because you were carrying it in isolation, inside your own thoughts, inside your own understanding. But beyond that space, there has always been God's provision, often expressed through people, moments, and unexpected kindness. A friend who shows up at the right time, a sentence that speaks directly into something you couldn't explain, a gesture of care that you didn't anticipate. These are not random. They are part of something larger at work in your life. And that work has been happening for longer than you may have noticed. So you don't need to measure your progress only by what you can count or control. Some of the most meaningful shifts are happening in ways you cannot track, in places beyond your awareness. And that's okay, because you are not alone in this. You never have been. Notice what has already begun to change within you. The rhythm of your breathing has softened. Your chest is not as tight as it was before. Even your thoughts, which once rushed forward with urgency, have quietly stepped back, making space for something calmer, something steadier. These shifts may seem small, almost unimportant, but they are not. They are the first gentle movements of trust taking root in you, not as an idea, but as a lived experience within your body. These moments deserve your attention. They are not accidents. They are signs that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. In Isaiah 30-15, there is a quiet truth. In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. Strength, not in striving harder, but in allowing yourself to rest, to trust, to breathe again. What you are feeling right now is the beginning of that strength. There is a partnership being offered to you, one that does not demand exhaustion or constant vigilance. You are not being asked to carry the future on your shoulders. You are being invited to walk forward, step by step, while something greater holds the weight of what lies ahead. Psalm 121 reminds us, "He who watches over you will not slumber." That means the responsibility of holding everything together does not fall on you. It never truly did. Your role is not to control every outcome, but to remain open to unexpected kindness, open to timing that unfolds differently than you planned, open to the quiet ways grace enters your life without announcement. There is a sacred rhythm in this. You walk, and God prepares. You live, and He weaves. You remain present, and He arranges what you cannot see. And all that is being asked of you in return is something surprisingly simple. A yes, not a perfect yes, not a confident, unshakable declaration, just a real one. In Mark 9, there is a moment when a father, desperate for help, says to Jesus, "I believe, help my unbelief." That was not a polished statement of faith. It was honest, raw, even conflicted. And yet, it was enough. Because sincerity carries more weight than certainty. A small, trembling yes, offered honestly, opens more than a loud, confident one spoken without depth. So whatever your yes looks like right now, it is enough. If it feels fragile, that is okay. If it carries questions, that is okay. If part of you still feels unsure, that is okay too. You are not required to separate your faith from your fear before you come. Both can exist in the same space. Both can be held together. You are received as a whole person, not a perfected version of yourself, not a version that has everything figured out, but exactly as you are. There is no need to clean up your thoughts, organize your emotions, or resolve every doubt before you step into this kind of trust. Grace meets you where you are, not where you think you should be. For a long time, you have relied on effort. You have carried, managed, analyzed, and tried to stay ahead of everything, and you have done it well. But the freedom you are longing for does not come from doing more. It comes from releasing more. Less tension, less overthinking, less pressure to turn every moment into something you must control. There is another strength within you, one that has not been used as often. The strength to surrender. Surrender is often misunderstood. It is not giving up. It is not losing. It is not collapse. Collapse happens when you are forced to stop because you have nothing left. But surrender, true surrender, is a choice. It is the quiet decision to stop bracing, to stop gripping, to trust that you are safe enough to let go. Jesus spoke of this kind of surrender in Matthew 11:28-29. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That invitation was not for the strong, but for the tired. Not for those who had everything under control, but for those who knew they couldn't carry it anymore. And here is the difference you need to feel deeply. Surrender is not defeat. It is placing your life into God's care, trusting His will above your own. Defeat says, "I cannot do this." Safekeeping says, "I no longer have to do this alone." Those are not the same. One takes away your hope, the other restores it. And as you begin to practice this, even in small ways, something remarkable happens. Your body starts to remember that letting go does not lead to disaster. Your mind begins to quiet because it no longer has to anticipate every possible outcome. Over time, these small moments build something stronger within you. Memory creates trust. Trust increases your capacity. And that capacity allows you to live without being ruled by fear of what comes next. This kind of life is not reserved for a select few. It is not something only certain people qualify for. It is available to anyone willing to learn this new posture, and that includes you. You have always been enough to step into this. So, whatever words feel honest to you right now, hold on to them. Even if they are simple, even if they are quiet, even if they are unfinished, there is relief waiting on the other side of that honesty. And it belongs to you. I want you to leave this moment with something simple but real. Hands that are just a little more open than they were before. That is enough. Not how deeply you felt every word, not how much you can recall later, but whether something in you softened, whether your breathing settled, whether the future stopped feeling like a problem to solve and started feeling like a path you can walk. Even the smallest shift matters. In Psalm 37:5, it says, "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act." That commitment is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is as quiet as a breath, as subtle as a decision to loosen your grip for just one moment. And if something in you did shift, even slightly, then the work has already begun. What comes next is not pressure, but patience. Trust grows slowly, like roots beneath the surface, unseen but steady. And there is time for that. You are not behind. You are not late. Nothing about your journey has disqualified you from what is still possible. There has never been a moment when you were abandoned, even in the seasons when you felt distant, even in the times when you questioned, resisted, or tried to carry everything on your own. In Deuteronomy 31:8, there is a promise. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. That has been true in every chapter of your life. Even the ones that felt empty. There is a quiet assurance in knowing that your story is not fragile in the way you once thought it was. It is not dependent on your constant effort to hold it together. There is a steadiness beneath it all, a faithfulness that does not waver based on your strength or your understanding. Like a parent who keeps the light on and the door open, there has always been a place for you to return to, without judgment, without hesitation. The invitation has never been withdrawn. The table has never been cleared. The road ahead of you is not in uncertain hands. It is in hands that have carried countless stories, that have shaped outcomes beyond what any human mind could plan. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." That future is not something you have to force into existence. It is something being prepared, even now, in ways you cannot fully see yet. So, whatever it is you have been holding, whatever feels like the pen in your hand, you are invited to release it, not because your effort has been wrong, but because you no longer have to do this alone. What is written next will not erase who you are, it will honor it. Like a co-author who understands your voice, God, in His wisdom, redeems and reshapes your story according to His perfect will. You will recognize yourself in what unfolds, but you will also see something more, something deeper, something that could only have been added through grace. And somewhere along the way, you will notice a change in yourself. It may come quietly, a smile that returns without effort, a moment of peace in an ordinary day, a sense of lightness where there was once tension. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." That beauty does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it appears gently, like a quiet reassurance that something has shifted within you. When that moment comes, receive it. Don't question it. Don't analyze it. Let it be what it is. Like rain falling on dry ground, let it soak in. You were made to receive goodness, not just to strive for it. You were made to be held, not just to hold everything together. Because the truth is, you have been held all along. Your effort did not secure your safety. Your constant thinking did not guarantee your future. There has been a greater care surrounding you, carrying what you could not see, sustaining what you could not control. And now, you are being invited to live from that place of security instead of striving for it. As you move forward, there are small, practical ways to live this out. Begin your day with a moment of stillness before the noise begins, even a minute to breathe, to acknowledge that you are not alone. When you feel the urge to control everything, pause and ask yourself what you can release in that moment. When worry rises, speak truth over it, not perfectly, but honestly. Let your life become less about constant management and more about presence. Be where you are. Do what is in front of you. Trust that what is beyond you is being handled. And now, let this be your prayer. Lord, you see me fully in ways I cannot even see myself. You know the weight I have been carrying, the thoughts I have been holding on to, the fears I have tried to manage alone. Today, I bring them to you, not perfectly, but honestly. I release what I can, even if it feels small. Teach my heart to trust you more, not in theory, but in the way I live each day. Remind me that I am not alone in what I face. When I am tempted to control everything, help me remember that you are already at work. When I feel uncertain, give me peace in the present moment. When I grow tired, restore my strength. Shape my life in ways I could never plan, and lead me step by step into what you have prepared for me. Thank you for your patience, your faithfulness, and your constant presence. Amen. As you carry this with you, stay connected to spaces that remind you of truth and peace. If these words have been meaningful to you, consider subscribing so you can continue receiving encouragement like this. And if something here spoke directly to your heart, you can share your reflection by leaving a comment like, "I choose to trust," as a quiet declaration of what you are stepping into. Thank you for being here, for taking this time, and for allowing yourself to begin this journey of letting go and being held.